All right, folks. Good evening, everyone. Hello. Can you all hear me? Good evening. Yeah, happy Saturday. My name is Ivan. I'm the programs manager here at Beyond Baroque. Yeah, welcome to the Wanda Coleman Theater. Yeah. Tonight we are celebrating more than 50 years of Poetry Flash here at Beyond Baroque, Wanda Coleman Theater. I want to welcome you all. I want to acknowledge our presence on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Tongva peoples as the first peoples of this land. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous communities through colonialism and genocidal practices. As an arts organization, we are committed to uplift their stories, communities, and cultures. Beyond Baroque is a nonprofit literary arts organization founded in 1968 by Judge Drury Smith. I'm sure most of you in the space know the history, but for some of you who may be new to the space, we've been here for 56 years. Yeah. And its roots are deeply embedded in the Venice community. It began as an experimental literary magazine and evolved into the interdisciplinary art space we know it as today. And Beyond Baroque has been here in the original Venice City Hall building since the late 70s, once poets and artists took it over. The rest is history. We have a reading and performance series here every weekend, as well as our 2 weekly workshops in poetry and fiction. You can check out our website for more info on the exciting events that we have coming up for the summer. But to give you an idea, we have 2 book launches from some special poets that are with us tonight, including Lynne Thompson and Marsha Yeah, congrats. Lynne Thompson's Blue on a Blue Palette. She will be in conversation with Pam Ward. So please come back for that. And Marsha will be reading with Kim Young and Holiday Mason. Yeah. Yeah. And Dorian Liu, I saw a broadside of hers outside, but she will be here reading with Michelle Bidding and Dion O'Reilly. So that's all happening this month. Please come back for that. As well as an exchange of Detroit to LA poets happening on Thursday. So that'll have some blues in the performances. We are here thanks to your support, thanks to the community that keeps our doors open. We are offering memberships currently at $60 at the foundation level. If you become a member, you are supporting our mission to give a platform to writers and artists and keep our programming free every weekend. But at the same time, if we have a paid event, also if you want discounts on merch or workshops, we do offer that, and you can become a member, get those perks. And currently, if you get a membership at the foundation level, we're also offering a cool tote bag that you can show off anywhere you go. And at $20 right now, we have this cool T-shirt of Metaphors Be With You. So get it before it rises due to inflation and capitalist system that we live in, unfortunately. But yeah, Metaphors Be With You. Huge thank you to our staff, Quentin Ring, Jimmy Vega, Michelle Rafael, Genesis Perez, and happy birthday to Eric Alberg and Booth. Yeah. It's still Taurus season, right? Or Gemini? Gemini? Okay, Gemini. All right. And my mom's a Gemini, and I should know this. I'm an Aquarius, so. But yeah, for the win. All right. Yeah, but after the reading, connect, chat. We are doing this bridge of Alta and Sur California, so it's great to be in the presence of such a vast history, and it's a privilege for me to stand here and be part of this family. So please enjoy the show. I think those are all the announcements I have for you all, but if you want to chat more after the reading, yeah, we're here. And one note for our poets, no need to readjust the mic. Eric will be adjusting levels in the booth, but as you can see, you can hear me even if I stand all the way back, so no need to touch it. And say hi to everybody in the live stream. We are recording this, so yeah, this will be in the YouTubes. All right, please give a warm welcome to Joyce Jenkins and Suzanne Lummis. All right. To both of you, give warm welcome to Joyce and Suzanne.
Hey there. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Now, what I'm doing first is introducing the miraculous Suzanne Lummis. And Suzanne, I'm so grateful that Suzanne is here and to have had all of these many adventures with the Queen of the Southern Realms all these years. and I love it. She just told me that she has a new book coming out next year, Crime Wave. Can't wait for that. And anyway, her other poetry collections, Open 24 Hours. She edited Wide Awake, Poets of Los Angeles and Beyond, and her work is found in so many anthologies and many other publications. She's just a poet, teacher, arts organizer. Sorry, I got to get some water. And impresario extraordinaire. And she's just been so influential in this journey that we have had with.
Before you leave, I want to come up there and I just want to embrace you, even though I'm interrupting right in the middle of everything. Any pictures out there that everybody has a cell phone? Yeah, I will be up here, and so you just tell me when you want me to start talking about you. I just want to, I just can't hold back. I have
Okay.
Anything else you wanted to tell the audience? I don't mean to chase you away, but I'm just exploding with yes. And I hope somebody got a picture of us together. One of my favorite pictures that I have is of Joyce and me in Philippe's, the originator, according to them anyway, of the roast beef dip downtown, and one of the.
I do want to present you with a special award.
Oh,
San Francisco Noir.
Oh, how cool! Oh, this is the coolest thing ever.
In recognition of the
Oh, that's so great! And I was born in San Francisco.
Northern realms and southern realms.
San Francisco is my hometown,
I know.
Always has been my hometown. People keep forgetting that, and I have to keep reminding them. By the way, I do have to say, I do have an announcement. I have to ask the audience this, and it is relative to a car out there. Anybody here own that really shiny yellow new Mustang out there in the parking lot? Nobody? Who? Where? Oh! Who is it? Oh, I want to know you. I just want to All right. One other thing I wanted to mention. I know the guy, my first publisher, and Laurel, your first publisher too, probably, was Peter Schneider. Had a little one-man press in LA before hardly anybody else had a press in LA, and he was the one. He was a rather witty fellow. He was the one who coined that phrase, "Metaphors be with you." So every time I see that, he's long gone now, but he was a force in the community. I want to talk about Joyce. There you are. Something extraordinary about Joyce is that when I came here in '79, Joyce was up there in the Northern Realm, Queen of the Northern Realm already. And she has been a force for good in poetry, fighting the good fight, fighting for what's good and what is right. Ever since I got here, unflagging. And other people, there's hardly anybody who, there are poets who continue to be poets for this long. Not so many people that year in, year out, decade after decade, keep fighting for poetry, publishing not only poetry, but thoughtful commentary about poetry. And I won't say working tirelessly, because from our phone conversations, I know sometimes she does get tired. But other people along the way, because I've been here quite a while too, and there are people who come into poetry for a little while and are active in poetry for a while, and then they kind of drop out and go, I think I'll try advertising for a while, or, I think I will try venture capitalism for a while, see how that works out. And maybe sometimes maybe a couple of people have joined a monastery on a cliffside, one of those ancient structures that have existed since medieval times, and taken a vow of silence. That happens too. Something else besides poetry, a lot of people exit the scene, and Joyce is still here. And if any way you can support Poetry Flash as well, of course, you're going to be supporting Beyond Baroque, but good to support Poetry Flash by going around and seeing what's there, because there are new articles all the time. And right now, there are 2. Anybody know what just went up there recently? Yeah, 2 LA-centric pieces went up there by me. One of them introducing 3 poets of Los Angeles, and there might be another one of those somewhere down the line. I might someday introduce 3 more poets from Los Angeles, and one my memory and my tribute to the great late but recent Linda J. Albertano, who was such a force here. So, Joyce, anything else you would like me? Oh, I didn't mention that Poetry Flash is not the only thing she does. That's one of a whole panoply of things that she does. But also, I think you founded the Northern California Book Awards. Did you found them, Joy?
Poetry Flash actually produces them.
Poetry Flash produces the Northern California Book Awards and the Watershed Environmental Poetry Festival. So that's there. She doesn't get any time off. Thank you, Joyce. After, I think what I will do is this. I will now tell the order, and people out there are wondering, when am I going to go up? Because nobody knows when you're going to go up. I didn't get to confer with everybody beforehand about that. But how about we do it this way? After I do my little part up here, let us have, I'm going to try to do this in what does he call it? Alphabetical order? That's what I'm going to aspire to do. I might get somebody slightly out of place. Brendan, how about you come up after me? And you will recognize him because, well, for many different reasons in many ways, but for his hair or the absence of either of those. And he currently teaches at the Windward School and at LACMA. And he works with writers living with aphasia and traumatic brain injuries. And he has a book also, just like me. He has a book forthcoming next year, but not the same book, a different book. And his is called The Opposites Game. Then let's see who might logically come next. Maybe Marsha de la O. That's D. Have C, then you have D. Okay, so Marsha, this is what I think Phil wrote down about you. She was your next book, Creature? What's this? What? something was it's out. Oh, yeah. It was written during the last 5 years of her father's life when her siblings and Marsha took turns staying with her father so he could remain in his home. And that book was written during that time. Then we might have, let's see, I think I might be missing some. I hope I have everybody written down here. Rossi, I have a feeling I'm going to, where's Ramón? What happened to Ramón García? Is he here? Ramón? Ramón, you got here, but I don't know a damn thing about you. Who are you? Okay, so tell us, why don't you come up? When you come up, tell us the most important things about you, okay? And so Ramón García will come up in alphabetical order. And then how about we go to Rossi, who is the contributing editor of Poetry Flash. So you'll be seeing it. Oh, yeah, see, we've got some approval over people who are fans of contributing editors of Poetry Flash. And his most recent book is Say Again. And then how about, looking around here Steve Rood. Steve Rood, anybody here a fan of board members of Poetry Flash? Oh, yay, see. All right, that just brought the house down. And he has 2 books, and the most recent one, they're from Omnidon, his last book's and current one, Music from Behind the Stone Wall, from Omnidon. And let's see, then how about I go to, Phil Taggart, you come next. Okay, his latest book is Walking the Dog. In this something of it. In this time of rage, walking the dog in this time of rage. That's usually me, who's somewhere being angry at any given time, probably about political matters. All right, and then who? Let's see. Then who else? Lynne. Okay, well, I'm sitting. Lynne served as LA's poet laureate, the most recent poet laureate, and really, for all practical purposes, still our poet laureate. It's the closest thing we've got to a poet laureate. So I guess Lynne, you know what that means? You know what that means? It's a life. That's what it means. That is one of the things that it means. And then even worse than that, you are. It must be a lifetime position, like it was in England. No, she said no. She rejects that idea. Okay, but we're wondering, when does it officially end? And her latest book is Blue on Blue Palette, and was published last April. Did I get everybody in there? You know what order you're coming in? Okay. I can't wait to just rush home, and I want to show people the inside of this. Look, everybody. Look, it's got pictures. It's like a coffee table book. Does Eddie Muller have one of these? If he doesn't, he's going to be so jealous that I have one, he doesn't. I think I'm going to just flash it around and make him feel jealous. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read just 2 poems up there now that I've used up my whole 10 minutes. And I haven't yet read one single poem. I'm going to read just 2 poems. And one of them will be from this journal that I edited and selected all the poems for, and the editor-in-chief is named Yu Sharma, and he comes straight out of, who knows where he comes straight. What? Yeah, and specifically Kathmandu, comes straight out of Kathmandu, and he is the editor-in-chief, but I was the editor of this issue, and it is all about the movies, and it relates to the fact. Liz, do you want to shout out there from the audience, from the darkness, what it relates to?
What do I want to shout out?
Do you want to shout out why I'm reading a poem about the movies? Because
our next publication here at the
It'll be movie poems. And I'm going to, and this poem, I really love all the poems and the essays and the literary explorations, critical pieces that I published in here. But one of my favorites is by Tim Siebels, and it shows how stretchy and elastic a poem about the movies can be. It doesn't just have to be about your favorite star who is, oh, by the way, I have something to give away. I have to stop right now. Yvonne, I think Yvonne, no, you weren't there. Who? I have to give away. What? I have something to give away. It's in my bag. It's a book. It's a free project. And I'm going to give it to, and this suddenly, because the topic I was on suddenly made me realize something. I'm going to give it to the person who can tell me whose birthday it is today. Not a poet, but somebody in the movies. Somebody not in the movies. Is Eric in the movies? Who in the movie? Who has been in? I'm going to tell you that it's a person no longer alive except, yeah. Who said that? You get it. Okay, will you come to me afterwards? Come to me afterwards. I have a present for you, and it is a free project, okay? Today's Marilyn Monroe's birthday. All right, I'm going to read this poem I really love by Tim Siebels. Movie. It was already on when you came in. A 2-lane road, the cars, high beams blaming the dark. In the rear view mirror, the downtown of a city, familiar but not, because you have found yourself cast in the world without your consent. You think you must be something like other people, like the dude 2 rows back with his face lit by a phone, or maybe like the star behind the wheel, one eye swollen, the other tight in a squint. You want to know what happened, what's happening, and where the road will go and when. And soon she's standing outside a 7-Eleven, filling up her dusty dark blue Mustang. Early sun steams the back window. Maybe she drove all night, her voice part sorrow, part wind under the overhang. Why didn't I see it before? She asks aloud, for everyone flexing the engine ready to go. This is the story of what happens when what has seemed one way turns out to be another way, like a priest. Even when the day is sprung and you wake up trapped in everything, you want this face on screen without a flinch. Even the way she steers is a declaration. It's like you want to drive like that. You could drive like that. Like somebody in charge, somebody who knows the deal. On the passenger seat, half stashed in her scarf, a .38. Your mind moves to revenge, how your circumstances just don't make any sense. You want to know who made it this way, and one chance to make them back down and beg. The reversal sizzling with drama and music. That means you were right all along. That's why you keep watching, like everyone else, holding their sodas in the dark. She could be a friend, a nice person who deserves some goddamn justice. You can tell she'd like another life, without so many hard decisions adding up to only one. Maybe you really are the character other people think you are, even though they can't hear what's playing in your head. After the movie, you walk back into the mall, wondering if you could do what she did. That was pretty good, you mutter, with nobody nearby, and light all over your face. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to read a poem. Phil and Marsha recognize this publication. You recognize this publication, don't you? Skew, I think, which Marsha and Phil published for a long time. And a poem I really love and have not often read is in here. And I have one brief story about this poem. I'm sorry I've used up everybody else's time. Now you only get you get just 2 minutes apiece. I'm kidding. All right, I have one little story, which is that I started this poem and wrote the first little part of it in Mark Strand's class after I had gotten out of Fresno and studied with all those fellows in Fresno. And he said one of the smartest things, one of the most helpful things anybody has ever said to me back in my workshop days. I was writing about this guy who was haunting my imagination, a figure, sort of a fantasy-like, strange, sort of fairy tale-like figure of a man who lived alone on the moon. And that was the focus of it. And Mark said to me, this is not about the man on the moon. No such thing. It's about a woman who is obsessed with the idea of a man on the moon. And I went, whew, and I saw the whole poem, the first half of it, except for the end. And so I wrote the first half way back then when I was young, or at least a lot younger than I am now. And the end was missing. And then the second half I wrote only a few years ago when I understood what it had to be. And it's in sections. I'll pause between each section. Some stories about the moon. If a woman lies naked in moonlight, she's asking for trouble. She'll dream of plains with riderless horses and craters sending off light. The winter night will seem uncannily warm. She'll remember words she thought she'd forgotten and speak them in her sleep. She'll sigh. She'll reach out for something, but it will be only the shining air she pulls into her arms. He always has something gold. A gold tooth, for instance, or a tattoo of a candle flame, a gold watch with only one arm and that one pointing at midnight. He knows 6 words of English: penumbra, eclipse, and equatorial tide, forewarned and foreshadowed. He uses them sparingly. The shadow of his coat forms a map of a continent that is always in darkness. The shadows of his shoes seem furtive, the way they hide under his feet. His hands rest on his thighs, small mammals sleeping with one eye open. When he observes a woman, she feels his gaze, a coolness, a careless stir in the air, as if she were walking half-dressed over miles of white sand. Later, she'll realize he was only that dream she woke from once. She had risen and moved toward the window, noticed how silent the moon looked, as if it were submerged in water, a tide pool, a well no one goes to. If she loved the moon a little, she'd walk in its shallow light. If she loved the moon to the fullest, she'd drown. In the shifting, inaudible music of night coming on, she returns home by foot, and the moon comes around. The round moon mirror in her purse signals from its bright and black sides. What trails behind her, she wonders, moving, flowing like malted milk bleached to a shine. She walks faster. What rose through its sheathing of mineral grains feldspar, slides over shadows with a step like unsettled leaves following. Who from the past, her past catching up with her? When she enters her room, she feels someone has been there or is there now, trailing a dark, sweet odor like licorice seed, like sexual confession, the leavings or portent. On the other side of the window, the moon drops from its vapor smooth with an edge licked away. And what happens next? Nothing. And nothing more. She's only another woman alone in a rented room, wanting the unreasonable, the extravagant, to burst like a cache of pirate treasure, stolen, spilling gold as lunar light. Just another woman like that. No doubt you've heard of such cases through rumors, the old stories. They live in cities, these women, and eat in coffee shops. For them, the earth is not enough. They want the moon.
Suzanne Lummis, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, Joyce.
Hi.
How are you?
Great.
We were, Chad Sweeney and I and a few other poets were trying to make this evening as awkward as we could for Joyce in the lobby. And Chad was talking about how you just straight up wouldn't have had a career, you know, as a poet, wouldn't have had any of this without the support of Joyce Jenkins. You have an uncanny ability to make us all feel like we're the only poet in the room. And I always felt like, you know, whether you were giving me advice, or you were telling me where to look for the thing that I didn't know or couldn't find, whether you were helping me with a gig, whether you were introducing me at one, you always made me feel like a grown-up poet. You know, I wasn't hoping to have a career. As far as you were concerned, I'd had a long one already. And, you know, and wasn't it amazing that I was coming to Berkeley? I mean, anyway, so just thank you so much for all you do and how you've lifted all of us. This first poem is called A Tour de Force. I got a book and can't make myself read it. Even though my lover swears it's good, even though the cover says we might all beautifully belong somewhere. Imagine if everything you saw was printed inside your skull where people could see it after you died. When you do a lot of cocaine, it feels like that's true. Like the gallery is struggling to stay open because pipes keep breaking and the floor is always wet. That's what I remember, anyway. It's been a while since I had enough money to be that beautiful and echoing. Of course, you can't find anything in my head that looks like a sunset or a toy horse. It's all just goo in there. That's what memories become. Dark water and milk. You could no more read it back than you could drink the ink from a novel and know who loved who. I'm just saying, you know, Suzanne handled this beautifully, but when you're going to, you know, tell an audience that you have a poem that's in numbered sections, sometimes there is a kind of audible, how many sections? You know, this really tiny 3 little sections. I got so self-conscious about it. I think I actually tried this out at one of your readings where for a while, if I had a poem in numbered sections, I would do it in reverse order. And I would read the higher number to the bottom, that way the audience would feel, okay, we know when the end is coming, start at 3 and work your way down to 1. So this is a study of 3 paintings eaten by dogs. 1. A woman in a straw hat, ribbon trailing, eyes lost in shadow. She waves from a beach to where a whole sky should be, but isn't. There is half a cloud. There is 1 wing. 2. A man with white hair, a blue suit and necktie. He looks at us ready to answer any question not found in the books behind him. Don't be alarmed by his missing chest, his pulverized desk. These are his credentials. 3, because you gotta have a landscape. A mountain pass, late winter. Pine trees loaded with snow, gone pink at evening. They lean away from an awesome hole in everything. It's so big, you can see the skeleton of the world. Wet, wooden, thrown together in a rush. We might have known. Thanks, guys. You're very kind. Thank you. This is really new. This is one of those where you're not sure if this is old enough to leave the house on its own. This is perhaps an appallingly unsupervised poem right now, because I've taken it to a room full of you people. And so here we go. This is called Cirque. And here, my father said, is where the whales come to weep and write letters to their children. He slowed the car so I could see the strange towers of stone, like last teeth, standing who knows how long since the ocean burned away. I asked if the whales still came, and he said of course they did. It was the whole reason we'd come. It took a while before we saw the first one. Almost night, it rose behind a red mesa and floated towards us. Don't look scared, my father said. Keep eating your sandwich. If it wants you to move or look at it, you'll know. The whale drifted to a huddle of Joshua trees and waited. I was about to say I didn't hear any weeping when a low moan, long and longing, sounded behind us, and a second whale appeared like a storm cloud above the road. The first whale answered with a voice like all the heartbreak in a public aquarium, a lament deep enough to grow choral. And then I was crying too, sobbing actually into my hands. Yes, my father said, let it come. That's all that's left of the green and star-spined sea. I've been fascinated lately. I feel like any way you see other people using language, if there's a new use of language, I feel like, okay, poets get a shot at that too. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's a parking ticket, if it's a new kind of digital communication, I feel like if any new order in which people are putting words, poets should take a crack at it. And lately I've been fascinated by the kind of blips of information with which we're communicating. And more I'm noticing that some of the texting I'm doing with friends, the responses I'm getting sound more and more like memes. And they have this, and so much of the news and the information that we're sharing with each other seems to be so compressed, if you will, in a way that should be, familiar to poets. This is a poem that came about as an effort to sort of emulate some of this language. And I went to websites that boasted having amazing facts, and I only used 2. The rest I made up. This is Any Given Time. Many supermarket apples are already a year old. Some of the oldest cultures have no word for mud. The miniature horse is the only other mammal known to enjoy gossip. 60% of babies born in the United States can identify one suspect. Most handguns do not recognize their owners. The first road signs were apologies. 80% of all nocturnal discourse is held within hearing of a moth. It is impossible to hum while holding your nose, but easy to drown while singing. There are strangers who have watched you eat and still think about it. Love often appears in X-ray photography as a cloudy, indistinct area. This sentence is beautiful. May I please go ahead of you? I just have this one oyster. At any given time, there is a long line of ghosts waiting to whisper in your ear. Some, when finished, immediately head for the back of the line to go again. Others say only one thing and join other lines. Okay. All right. I had the privilege of going away on a retreat in February, and about halfway through it, my mother got very, very sick, and nobody wanted to tell me that she got sick. It was a doctor called me thinking I already knew to ask me questions about my mother's health and whatnot. I had no idea she was in the hospital, and then when I finally talked to her, she said, "Don't come home, don't come up. It's too important that you're writing." But you know, I was like, "Oh yes, great, yes, you're in the hospital. I'll just knock off an opus while you're healing." You know, how do you concentrate on this? And I'd had people, a woman had called me while I was in the middle of a project, and she said, "There's blood on your mother's brain, and we're hoping that, we don't think there's any danger to any structures in there, and there's no pressure, and we think she should be okay, but we want you to know about it." And, I was, so what do you do? Where do you go? So, I didn't know what to do. And the only reason I'm telling you this story is that I feel as though, one of the reasons I do what I do is that poetry has become an enormous source of strength over the years. I think there was a time that I was in love with the idea of being a poet. I think maybe that's even necessary to being a poet, is at some point early on, you should be really in love with the idea that you're a poet. It's very romantic. But if you stay with it, it actually becomes, if it doesn't begin as something that empowers you, it certainly can become one. Anyways, I didn't know what to do, and I knew I had to write on this one given day, and so I just started writing. I wrote the language that I had, and this is, "There is blood on your mother's brain." I hold my phone like you would if a stone started talking, warily, ready to drop it should it ask for blood. "There is blood on your mother's brain," it says. "Not a lot, but we want you to know. There's no compression," it says, "no risk to any structures. We want to keep her longer." So do I say, and wonder what structures I'd find in my mother's brain. The house where she grew up, the convent school, the rowboat she loved on Misery Bay. All of them bright, but for a little blood. Not enough to feed a stone. "Do you have any questions?" the stone asks. "I do. How do we clean up the blood? Will it stain her days? If more blood comes, can she get in the boat?" "It's a difficult time," the stone says, "but she's in good hands." I look at mine, the lines in them like channels, each one crossed by another. Okay, last one, gathering up. Thank you very much for your attention. I appreciate your attention, your enthusiasm, and your example. I'm looking forward to hearing from the rest of my fellow poets this evening. This is called Legend. Once, when the world was a forest, a woman made an arrow and shot a doe. As the animal died, the woman sang to it and apologized. The doe forgave her, saying, "You must eat my body cold tonight. "Do not build a fire." But it was winter, storms prowled the hills, and she could not eat the dough bloody. So she built a fire, ate the heart, and slept. In her dream, she was a river lapping between two mountains. The dream was loud and woke her. Looking into the dark, she could hear a horse nearby and the tread of a stranger. Then the spirit of the dough spoke. "You built a fire, and now a thief has come. When he finds you, hold my skull before your face and sing again." This time she did as she was told. When the thief stepped into the firelight, the woman was already singing and holding the dough's head like a mask. The thief did not run, and he did not touch the woman. Instead, he sat and drew a whistle from his pocket because he knew the song. Thank you.
And that was Brendan Constantine. So, Joyce, when I thought about this reading and I curated it, I thought about how I know you and what I thought you would most like. So it's specifically aimed at how I imagine your aesthetic to be. This first poem, there are 3 poems. This first poem is about the human's mediated relationship with nature. And as it is mediated, in this case, through a speaker, but also through the artist Cezanne, who was capable of being outside all day long and occasionally, sometimes, making only 1 brush stroke in an hour because of what he was taking in. It has a few quotes from him, from Cezanne, and when it does, I'll go like this, so you know. And the other thing you should know about Cezanne is that he was always desperate because his father was a banker and he hated that his son was an artist, and he made a bad marriage with a young woman, and the family hated her. And so there was a lot of problems with the marriage. It's called A Natural History of Light. And guess what? It does have 5 parts. A Natural History of Light. 1. A small bird cries, could be, above my head. Mousy little thing, one of those drab gray birds in this dry land. December sun streaming in low. December rain jostling the arroyo. Could be, calls drab gray. The state of the universe, physicists say, is a cosmological relic, a glass arc with hammered gold seams, pip trapped inside God's knucklebone. Nanosecond high energy outward bursts, kaboom, and space fills up with proto-stars. I crouch at the edge of the arroyo. Wind strokes my hand with its map of rivers. Oh, helium, lithium, hydrogen, you comfort me. Oh, carbon, you are my flesh and bone. 2. Here on the river's verge, I could be busy for months without changing my place, simply leaning a bit more to right or left. So says Cezanne. And now the sun leans west like Cezanne, striking a rippling mirror of water, refracting into a mirror of granite. Light pouring into matter. Let us praise their equivalence. if only my mind didn't flicker so. How you interpolate my complicated friend suddenly back in touch. Ah, gray bird, do you ever get confused? And the theorem that what is lost is lost? Light shining on water's skin, flowing tremors. 3. Color is the place where our brain and the universe meet. And what would Cézanne make of this verge? Oak, gold, water, river stones, wet, tawny leaves, and this impossible shade of deep and jade, where water slides over the shadow of a tree trunk, runneling body of darkness. Is it sable green? And the universe of patterns on granite, light as lattice, lacework, loose weave. A dress knit of light Madame Cézanne wears, skein, unraveling nakedness inside, bedazzlement, his complicated friend. He loved best light's long kiss, light's ripple, unruly water, unspooling, spooling down from the mountain, threads weaving together, coming undone. And the theorem that nothing is lost. 4. We are, Cézanne reminds me, an iridescent chaos. And perhaps he speaks of the nature of light, or the coils in my mind, or Hortense, with her hair loosened, alone, Hortense, implacable in red. His family would not receive her. She bore his only son, raised him, living apart, desperate for funds. They judged her surface and depth, light on watered silk, how carefully she composed her pain through all those hours, all those portraits, 29 of them. How marriage confounded them both, confounds us, every marriage, spanning a ravine of time down in the canyon where stream and light and stone are one flame. Yes, fire ascendant in water, fire paramount, water catamount, puma, water, plum colored in its darker parts. I hear somewhere close that bird calling, could be, could be. Tell me, bird, how soul inhabits the place of fire, how soul dwells there. And it's trembling. Thank you. Thank you. And this poem is from the book. And it's the first poem, and it's about synesthesia, that sensation that sometimes comes over you in the natural world where your senses merge. It's called To Be Unprotected. Alone, under a blue cloud backlit by a quarter moon in a dry wash, I wanted starlight to bend low, brush my face and bare arms. There's a thirst inside syntax for what can't be told. Night breaking against a bowl of mountains, heart ticking each unit of flux. When I say I heard it, I mean I felt its song on my skin, in needles, in shards, raining like flakes from a hammerstone, feathered, rippled, stroke struck. Inside my body, a hum or tremble in a place where I keep fear. Outside, a glister, a lilt, falling as sound from stars, like tin, like salt, like silt. Words can't mean the same thing twice. When I say I thought I might die of beauty, I mean it broke me apart. I had to give in, let night drape a garment of sound over my human form. Let words yearn toward silence under the piano of starlight, its soft percussion. If wild is psalm and singer, let it wash over, empty me, and make use of my emptiness. I am willing. And this last one, I just wrote it for you, Joyce, because I think it's such a good thing to acknowledge the grace of a singular life. And I know very well that Poetry Flash didn't just hatch from an egg and crawl into the sea and swim through the ocean. It took someone to take care of it. So this is called Catalyst and Creature. A witch often does not receive credit for her patience. A witch might weave 40 years silken tensile nets of words without notice. And still she sprouts an appetite to go on. And still she launches filaments to anchor imagination's multiple threads to the elderberry, the gum tree, to aureole and mist, the blanket of fog pouring off the ocean, filament after filament, thread spinner, spindle never fully exhausted. Her savage gifts bend low over snakeberry. Yarrow and buckeye, they comfort her. The small voice of mountain dandelion whispers in her ear. From glade to rivulet, Joyce has learned to listen in turn. As for the rivers in her heart, they remember us. How necessary the building and rebuilding, the starting over, the tensile strength of silk. Thank you, Joyce.
Hello, I'm Ramón García. I think Suzanne asked, thank you, Suzanne, for invitation, and congratulations, Joyce. It's very meaningful for me to be here for this particular reading. I'm actually missing my niece's graduation party in the Central Valley. I was on the Amtrak all day coming back from Modesto. She understands. I was at her graduation ceremony yesterday in the sun in the morning, so I didn't completely miss out. But I remember as a student picking up Poetry Flash, in Santa Cruz and Berkeley and San Francisco, and reading about all these mostly American poets who I was reading in class as I was beginning to read poetry. And I just became very nostalgic thinking about it lately, because it was kind of the Rumbo kind of days when I just thought you just wrote poetry and forgot about everything else. Then I figured out it was a little bit more complicated than that. But yes, I mean, those were special days. Poetry Flash, my first readings with Gloria Anzaldúa. She was just published this book called Borderlands. Who knew it was become so canonical and so famous. My first poems were published by Francisco Alarcón Lorna Cervantes, who I know were involved with Poetry Flash. So all that, I feel very privileged just to have lived that, and was very much part of my unofficial education, because I never took a creative writing class. I don't have an MFA. But that was my education, what I read, on my own, and what I discovered just looking around, just as a poet observing. So I just want to thank Joyce personally, and I think we all have our own particular reasons for being grateful, but I think mine are go very deep. I think Suzanne also asked me to quickly just mention something about myself. I think the most important thing, if she mentioned that, and I don't remember exactly, I would say is because I grew up in a church, very Mexican Catholic, but very leftist, politicized Vatican II church, involved in the solidarity movement with Central America and etc. So that was actually part of my education too, because I think it influenced a lot of my Catholic sensibility, which is not a bad thing, if we can connect it back to Santa Teresa de Avila and San Juan de la Cruz, Lorca, Luis Cernuda, etc. So the rest is just writing, I think. I'm also the author of the Chronicles, published by Red Hen Press, and other countries, published by What Books Press, and the chapbook that came out 2 years ago by Foundlings Press in New York. And I think the Chronicles is in the bookstore. So I have just a few poems to share. I want to start with a poem that I wrote after a poem by Gail Wronski, because I published an interview with Gail Wronski in Poetry Flash about 2 years ago after her selected poems were published, I think by White Pine Press. I think that's in the bookstore here too. It's a poem of hers about Sidonie Gabrielle Colette, otherwise known as Colette. It's entitled Sidonie, after Gail Wronski. Reading Colette, I am reminded that I, too, come from a culture steeped in taste, variegated nourriture, banqueting, savoring what couldn't be bought, the metaphysics of indulgence. Sex came with complications, incurably guilt-sick, love obtuse or melodramatic. The senses, Sidonie's beloved home, was for me darkly decorated in Christ, the proverbial lack of money. But look, mole is lush carmine, hefty with spices, secret excesses. Rancheras are operas. The flesh, the supreme study, can be mastered in many languages, all of them dead. Longing doesn't have to cabaret itself in philosophy. Sensuality can also be mute. After all, it doesn't have much to say, though it writes itself beautifully. Literature, poetry, doesn't need Paris, chateaus, Gallic cads, or any kind of gigolos. It does with little commercialized California towns entrenched by churches and canneries, with barrio dance halls where Mexicans dance cumbia in celebration of a baptism or for no reason at all. In these mundane towns, as in the world of Colette, the spirit is manifest in what remains of the home country, children, animals, heartbreaks, family, strawberries, perfumes, and flowers. Every ranchera houses memories, the blissful plaintiveness of living fully. Sentimental education. Nuns, in bodiless black and white, pull your ear or slam a ruler on your knuckles. You learn to be quiet and behave. You learn to read. You learn to dread. Mornings in the classroom, the nuns inspect what we write on government-provided paper. Their shadows fall upon us. We dare not look up. Beyond the classroom windows, the midday sun blazes on the empty cement playground. Inside the Pueblo's cathedral, underneath the holy poses of elegant saints and Madonnas, are cold flowers and incense, peasant prayers droning quiet centuries of tragedy. The crucifix on the wall of the room you share with your brother is the last thing you see before sleep. You wake up to Christ's bloodied limbs, welcoming you out of your dreams. But this is another life I'm speaking of, ours. After lunch recess, I watch Miss Brady read the book no one listens to. Her voice makes prayers of Hardy Boys mysteries. For Miss Brady, it's a way to pass another afternoon of another hour with the grandchildren of the Okies, the Mexican kids who live in an alien shared silence. The crucifix still hangs on the bedroom wall. At St. Stanislaus, the plaster saints of another country have always been at home under the agonized gaze of Christ crucified. The afternoon light has no country. This is, everyone from LA will recognize this or probably has their own version of this poem. It's entitled Star Sightings. I have seen stars in Los Angeles, Leonardo DiCaprio, Christina Ricci. Unlike mortals coming upon gods in Greek mythology, nothing transpired. I've sighted porno stars too, vaguely recognized, never by name, pointed out by others. They have the daguerreotyped eyes of John Brown, brilliantly empty, teeming with otherworldly violence. Underneath clothes, one knows their bodies are eternally stripped of private sanctity. Profane violation has granted them a sacred or a slave aura, inaccessible to the free, to you and me. But you realize you too have been a porn actor in rooms absent of cameras. Satisfied or ashamed, you remained pure, anonymous. Such is the ambrosia of fame, its taste of adoration and distance. I have a series of poems, not a series, I've been writing poems, mostly persona poems, about literary characters that don't really appear in the text or the novel, plays, etc. So in one of my favorite Tennessee Williams plays, Suddenly Last Summer, the young poet that is mentioned in that the whole play kind of is structured around, Sebastian, it has been eaten by cannibals in some island, very Melvillian island of the Encantadas. And so I think that's the only, preface that needs. Also, we probably all have watched the great film with Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift that also inspired, I think, this poem. Sebastian in the Encantadas. Drums beating to the collective racing breath of orgies. Rain a thunderous baptism of semen. In this island destined for my enchanted kind, for a poet to find, let it be known, I offered the gift of my flesh, that my head be a crown on an elegant stake. Don't excavate my remains, Messamene's body parts. I was delivered to God, whose motherless bone-white face I recognized in the searing, obliterating Caribbean sun. My bones have grained into sand, like diamond sequences flooring the night, kindling the ocean's awesome clamoring pool, its waters boiling with Christ's fish, multiplying like my insatiable lust. And I'll just end with this poem that was recently published in Plume. I think the new version just came out today. I just saw it on, but I think it was the previous one that this poem appeared in. It's entitled Separation. Slumbering suburbs, calm depths of summer. I walk the sidewalk at the periphery of an elementary school, emptied for weeks of children's laughter, fears, and daydreams. Contrapuntal silence between barking dogs and cars intermittently passing. Time grinds to a halt, face to face with the future. In another continent, the person you still love is rooted to the sleep of another sleeping body. Their dreams are as far away from each other as you are. In this, nothing has changed. The past is breathing loss through the ash trees, and you are no longer in its hours, in the snow, in the mornings, in the absence, now occupied by another. Thank you.
Ramón García. Thank you. Thank you. I am Lee Rossi. At least I was this afternoon. It's time, I think, for a brief commercial break. We know, or some of us know, that the pandemic did terrible things to the sales of poetry books. And you'll notice when you walk out that door there, that there are literally dozens of books by tonight's authors looking for homes, feeling lost and alone. And I'm hoping that some of you will take it upon yourselves to show a little mercy and throw a few dollars at poets, okay? That would be very nice. Thank you. And speaking of being lost and alone, 10, 12 years ago, I had just moved up to Northern California, and I was a homeless poet, a kind of wandering samurai. I love samurai. I was a Ronin poet, you know, and I didn't know where I was or who I was or what I wanted to do with my life, except something having to do with poetry. And lo and behold, I ran into Joyce Jenkins at the AWP and asked her if she would take me in. And she did, quite to my surprise. And it's been a lovely relationship ever since. You know, I write a few reviews for Poetry Flash. I do interviews. There will soon be a interview with, yes, Miss Thompson there, Lynne Thompson, current, once and future poet laureate of Los Angeles. And yeah, and I think you'll all find it very interesting. Lynn is a wonderfully thoughtful and compelling poet, and I hope my review kind of uncovers some of that wonder. All right, so I'm going to give you 3 or 4 poems from various books. These are all available in the bookstore. The first one is a sort of old poem. This book is from 2002. It's called Ghost Diary. And it takes place in Los Angeles, not far from here. If I have obsessions, I mean, I should read my poems instead of talking about myself, but I think one of my formative experiences in school was reading Leslie Fiedler's Love and Death in the American Novel. Anybody familiar with that? Oh, that's so long ago, I know. That was 60 years ago that I read this book. Anyway, so, but then I think about, you know, what I've written over the years, and it's all love and death. This is called Spotting the Goddess. There are so many goddesses. The goddess of teeth, the goddess of dreams, the wide-bodied goddess of truckers, the goddess who speaks with my mother's voice, the goddess in the closet guarding my ex-wife's abandoned clothes, the old-time goddess who hunkers down deep in furrows and roots for the little green shoots that wave their tiny flags on cold spring mornings. Lots of goddesses, but the most dangerous one is 22 and blonde. And this morning, she was getting her mail in high heels and a mini skirt as I was turning the corner at Cloverfield, yes, and Ocean Park. I could have been killed. Yeah, so where is that other poem, the next poem? I love samurai. Anybody see, what was that? Shogun. Yes. Yeah, that was pretty good, I thought. Okay. Oh, here's a poem that takes place at one of my favorite places in LA, the Page Museum, La Brea Tar Pits. It's called Elegy in an Elephant Graveyard. Now, I was thinking about Thomas Gray, but I couldn't do the rhyme or the, so just forget about Thomas Gray, okay? Thank you. My children test the ooze at the Ice Age Museum to see how hard it is to extricate an arm, hard, or a leg, harder. Outside, tar pits bubble and burp, evidence that million-year-old ferns still simmer in cauldrons deep underground. Imagine the poor Columbia mammoth, 10,000 pounds of organic grass-fed meat sinking helplessly into a seductive water hole. Pit 91 at Rancho La Brea held the skeletons of 181 individuals, adults and calves, live tissue, not the rock for carbon fossils in other sediments. 10,000 years ago, the hunter-gatherers of ancient Mesopotamia domesticated wheat, the horse, and the ox. In North America, the Pleistocene megafauna died out. The only sizable predator to survive was man. My children, latter-day epigones of human adaptability, examine a wall glowing with hundreds of wolf skulls, anonymous in their representative glory. In the next hall, a motorized saber-tooth drives its oversized incisors into the fleshy scalp of a giant sloth. This individual portrait of death frightens my daughter, who hobbles like a baby mastodon to the safety of her mother's long legs. Other families roam from one diorama to the next, small herds grazing on tufts of fact. A crowd gathers in front of a large mural. Nearly naked surfers toss atlatls and spears tipped with chert at a mammoth foundering in a sea of golden grass, its tusks more fanciful than any alpine horn, shofars trumpeting a silent fanfare of farewell. Having eaten everything that was easily killed, those early humans learned to do without the great stupid beasts that once filled the prairies and forests. Every day they say another species is lost. Tonight, my children will dream of beauties we've destroyed to keep them alive. After lunch, they spin down the park's grassy slopes like asteroids in the giant fridge of space. SUVs hunt for parking like wolves circling a flock of sheep. Okay, on a little lighter note, this is a story my parents used to tell about when they used to take me to my godmother's bar when I was 2.5. It's called Hymn to Ninkasi. Originally, there was a hymn written in Sumerian about 3,500 years ago to the goddess of beer, Ninkasi. So this is my version of it. Oh, the important thing about that early poem was it was basically a recipe for beer. And so I've had to include a recipe for beer in my poem as well. I'm 2 years old, crawling determinedly along the gleaming mahogany of my godmother's bar. Every foot or two, another pool of refreshment, golden-hued, snow-capped, a ring of chill condensation welling at its base. Oh, goddess, it was then I learned your goodness, granter of effervescent cheer, and I, who never knew my mother's nipple, now the beneficiary of every tippler's largesse. How they marveled, this toddler, hoisting goddess-shaped glasses to his unquenchable lips. You grant us surcease of all human hardships, pain and boredom and two-out line drive singles, bringing the opponent's tying and winning runs to the plate. O golden one, shock and on, we run to you when nothing else will do but the flowing water, the hulled grains, the toasted wheat and barley, the malt and aromatic herbs, which cleanse us of care, even at the age of 2, as we bow to you, stretching our short selves like your Tigris, your Euphrates, in full snoring prostration. All right, final poem. Today is the first day of Pride Month, and so I'm going to read a poem in honor of Pride Month. The poem is called Journée Internationale de la Bisexualité, which is what they call Pride Day in France. Okay, I'm sorry, my French is really terrible. It's our 20th wedding anniversary, but also International Bisexuality Day. What a lovely coincidence. People flagrantly smooching on the streets of Paris, and the two of us walking hand in hand past gay Parisian shops, one that calls itself I Do, Mariage, and another named Small, a smart car parked in front. We spend all day examining the latest bras and heels, the newest tourists and tourist traps. And what about the Lego hooker in primary colors, pasted high on a wall, her pixelated contours the latest in pubic art, or pubic art. Hemingway called Paris a movable feast, but feast feels too sedate for this orgy, this bacchanal of looking and loving. Young couples, Gallic as Asterix, the Galliard, you guys know that guy? Comic, okay. Young couples, Gallic as Asterix, push perambulators past the Pompidou and play with their toddlers on the grimy flagstones, beneficiaries of the government's largesse and fear of Algerians, who also happen to be French citizens, juicing procreation as if it were jihad. It's all a bit confusing to those of us, visitors from Puritania, for whom a plein air peck is an act of daring, who save the French stuff for behind closed doors. Thank you.
Okay, here we are. This is a bizarre lighting situation. I can't see who's here. Joyce Jenkins. We're here to honor Joyce Jenkins. In this dying art that we are part of.
No, you're dying, the art is not.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll go with that. What would the world be if it were not for Joyce? What would our lives be if it were not for Poetry Flash and what Joyce has done extraordinarily for decades? What would our lives be? What would happen if Poetry Flash didn't show up in our lives? We would be very deeply depressed and worse. Joyce asks, I do. Joyce needs, we give. And it's time for us to make sure Poetry Flash and that Joyce is able to continue to do what she does differently than anybody else on this planet. Thank you, Suzanne, for setting this up in Los Angeles. I was born in Boyle Heights. I grew up in Hollywood. I went to Hollywood High School. The mountains, the Santa Monica Mountains, are my childhood landscape, and they live within me. Nothing else compares. Everything else is a small, what should we say? I won't say. I don't know how many of you remember these. This, when I lived here, and I was just starting as a lawyer, I helped Helen Friedland do the nonprofit shell for Poetry LA. These are some of the earliest editions. Everybody who wrote in LA is in these books, right? Yeah. Everybody. Lee is in it. Everybody. Just, it was a beautiful enterprise, and I guess it still continues, Joyce was telling me, as a podcast. Anyway, we're here for Joyce. I'm friends with ballet dancers. This poem is called Conversation After the Ballet. 27 bones of hand, 3 of arm, 26 of foot, chains of small bones. The remaining 94, and a vast flexuous musculature holding them, all impelled into flight. Music and the body. The job least likely to be replaced by artificial intelligence is principal dancer with the Canadian National Ballet. Nothing except the actual body is a body. The dancer is saying that a computer program learned how Beethoven was Beethoven. Maybe, I say. But can AI match a couple hidden in Temescal Canyon, moving smoothly under willows, circled by a hawk? No, she agrees. Can AI speak in the language of spring on the mountain? No algorithm can prove a ripe gooseberry, a whispering flax, a sun-detonated lily. Odors, qualities of light, rhythms now hidden beneath memory, emerging from stiffness as one finds grace in an arm. Matchless singularities. We look so small at table. My teacher and beloved friend, Jack Gilbert, a great American poet, whom I spent last years with as he had Alzheimer's. This is called Paradise Without Illusion. Jack is napping in the garden of Sunrise Skilled Nursing. I am half napping next to him. We're facing into the early spring breeze, 2 old leathery Jews on a beach in Florida. Clouds pass, light and shade fall on our eyes, and the sun stings our cheeks. It's a quiet voyage we're on. A string quartet is being piped in. Nurses and attendants assume I'm Jack's son. When they ask, I tell them I am, which is true enough. Jack hears everything. Sometimes I catch a slit of blue eye. Sometimes he nods yes or no. Sometimes he reaches to me with his long fingers. All right, I'm going to try to be compassionate on the audience and not read but another 2 poems. The oak grove on Piedmont Way, slated to be cut down by the university. This is about Berkeley, where I moved, and which is not my native landscape, but it's good enough. The grove's only voice is wind, a chorus of soft lisps. A tree cannot persuade, helpless against argument and money. A tree's effect is music without words, spreading out from a still center, then blooming into time, shapes, exaltation, grief, and the many orders of green. The only way for a tree to prevail is for a human to yield to it completely. The way I might sometimes permit music to enter me, perhaps when I'm tired or sick. Then sound is suspended until a silence glows around it, and at once I shake for holding so much. Phrases, movements, skies, winds, meadows, the oaks applying their 1,000 subtle fingers to peel me. And then, last poem. The man thinks that after 75 years, his life lacks life. His life is dead. He chops onions with his best knife, careful not to cut himself this time. The slices get thinner and thinner, translucent, finally not existing. The man first heard, "My life is dead," as a passing thought. It stuck. What is he to do now that he knows? He doesn't want another life. He's been rattling around his empty house, which is his mind, for years, except for the few small animals that pass through on occasion. The cat that draped itself over the man's neck when he studied law. The house finches and sparrows bickering at the feeder. Will the man live through his death? He won't leave life, not wanting to burden his family with the cleanup. Do nothing, he thinks. Move nothing. Let death move over him, going any way it does. Lie back on the backyard grass. Let clouds fill the sky from the west. Let wind carry them beyond him. Thank you.
I was having a little trouble figuring out what alphabetical order was. Thank you, Steve. Joyce Jenkins and Poetry Flash. I remember, I'm from Ventura. My name's Phil Taggart. And one of the ways that I kind of got in touch with our community was through Poetry Flash. I would look for reading, and I found it because my sister lived in Berkeley, and so I was up there a lot, and I found Poetry Flash, and I realized it had a Southern California section, and I ended up distributing it to Ventura and Santa Barbara counties with Jackson Wheeler and David Oliveira. The thing I want to say about Poetry Flash is it creates community. It creates a community that we are. I think we wouldn't be pulled together, or at least in my case, I wouldn't be pulled to this community as it is now if it weren't for Poetry Flash and Joyce's
long work, long years' work. And I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you, Joyce. Okay, some poems. This is from Rick Sings, which is about my brother who suffered from schizophrenia. And it's 10 years old, and I just got a review of it last week. So I thought, it's still around. Okay, this is called Last Night. Last night, the fear woke me. A shadow raving, blackout, numb, frozen at the edge, afraid to, but wanting to jump. I have never been comfortable with sanity. My mother, her body vacant, electroshock medicated. My brother listens to voices on a mattress in the corner of a carport. The fear is sometimes a comfort, and inevitably it welcomes me home. Now here's my COVID book, and the reason I call it my COVID book is because it came out and then COVID hit. And so my reading tour was cut very, very short. Maybe 2 readings. So I'm going to read something from this one. This is Mothra. This is a Mothra. I'm a fan of Godzilla, and because Godzilla was one of the first protest movies, and I think it's pretty. As we were occupying Japan, they decided to do Godzilla, which was a protest movie about the atomic bombs, which I really enjoyed. And Mothra was part of it. And Mothra's her job was to protect the Earth. That was her job. And she had her two what do they call anyway, she had 2 little fairies that rode around with her. And so I wrote a series of Haibun based on Mothra. Mothra makes it to Australia. Above normal fire potentials, that's what they say. Mothra and the luminous twins out over the Pacific. They approach a curtain of smoke. The twins are hushed. No talk of the upcoming world tour. From June 2019 through March 2020, 72,000 square miles burnt, over 1 billion animals dead. The world knew it was coming, but the twins were to appear on Australia's Pop Sugar TV show and a cameo on Rock This Boat. They cancel and drop down into the smoke. They can see nothing, their throats afire. No sun today, orange, gray, and black smoke. Eyes sting, burn, can't breathe. And this is about the satyr. I was reading American Gods, and I decided to write some poems about gods that are still around. And the satyr, is kind of a bad god at the beginning, but then got older and kind of mellowed out. And it seems to live in California. I don't know why. And this is about the Perseid meteor showers. The satyr sleeps in light raining. He drives Old Woman Springs Road looking for a place free of man's light. Once the satyr floated on his back in a Palm Springs pool. Perseid rain light in water. Salt, buoyant, like a dream, it quiets him. He remembers Perseus from back then. The man was angry, violent. The satyr was probably drunk. That was millennia ago. They changed, they grew up. He's taking time off work, driving through the Mojave, Lucerne Valley, Landers. A dirt road aims right out past it all. He parks, carries an old canvas camp chair, 6-pack of beer, climbs a small rise, sets camp, thinks about humans growing up. He is supine, canvas stretches, and he encounters stardust burning. Occasional coyotes howl, and of course, gunshots, always gunshots. Okay, this is a sing-along, so just warn you. I'll tell you when to start. It has an epigraph. It's called Go See Cal. And the epigraph is, old jalopies on the blink, go see Cal. It's later than you think, go see Cal. He calls back to us through the ether, across the somatic divide. You too can have this American dream. Buy this car, drive this asphalt. I will stand upon my head to sell a car. I will stand upon my head till my ears are turning red. Okay, let's try that again. I will stand upon my head to sell a car. I will stand upon my head till my ears are growing red. Go see Cal, go see Cal, go see Cal. Cal drifts west across the desert, from the heartland to the promised land. His heat-shimmering visions of Aztlan, Angeline, Surf City, giant blue pyramids, and single-family tract homes. He touched us in this holy land, sealed in concrete with bikinis, and once upon a time tattooed across dreamy blue raster abundance, complete with palm trees, shimmering, swaying with his dog Spot. Thank you, Joyce.
All right, everybody, are you hanging in there? Yes. Everybody's good? Yes. All right, I'm going to be what my friend Seldy calls brisk and efficient. We're going to wrap this up so we can talk with one another, but I would be remiss if I didn't join the chorus of my fellow readers that I'm so proud to be reading alongside and say how important you've been to me personally before I knew anyone in this room, before I knew there was a Beyond Baroque in what is now Skylight, but was once Chatterton's. I found Poetry Flash, and I thought, there are poets in California. Yes! And it was so exciting and so inviting and made me think, despite my mother's dismay, that maybe this was possible. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. So I'm going to be reading from my new book, Blue on a Blue Palette. I'm very proud of my new baby. If you would like to hold your applause and go crazy at the end, that's fine. We'll whip through it and we'll be out of here. Okay. We'll be hugging up Joyce. All right. This first poem I'd like to share is written in a form I think I invented, at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. It combines a cento or cento, depending on who you ask, of the lines of Terence Hayes and Diane Seuss. With a pantoum, I call it a chentoum. Make it new. Frankly, when asked about the autonomy of my body, I consider my inner assassin, as inside me is a black-eyed animal, the umbilicus from which everything originates. I have no origin story. Unburdened by conscience like a baby, the umbilicus from which everything originates. I wonder if Jesus wants souls like the devil does, unburdened by conscience like a baby, the list of pallbearers still in a drawer somewhere. I bet you shapeshifters want souls like devils do, their hinges turning, the list of pallbearers still in a drawer somewhere, an existential jambalaya, their hinges turning, a clamor of voltas or some existential jambalaya. My only fear of a virtuous mob, a clamor of voltas shaped like a silver tongue. My deepest fear, a virtuous mob of mother wit and mother woe. Shaped like a silver tongue, I have no origin story of mother wit and mother woe. Inside me is a black-eyed animal. And I also wanted to say, as a recovering attorney, I also felt like the Joyce was saying, you can do this, you can walk away. Okay, I just wanted to get that in. This is also a cento inspired by a woman that we claim in Southern California as our own, but she belongs to the world. We know that. This is an ode for Joni Mitchell, Sometimes the Light. Blue, here is a shell for you, and sometimes there will be sorrow, but I have no regrets, Coyote. We're captive on this carousel of time. Oh, but sometimes the light. Blue, here is a shell for you and varnished weeds in window jars. Why did you pick me, and do you have any regrets, Coyote? Buy your dreams $1 down. Heed the trumpet's call all night. Blue, here is a shell for you because the more I'm with you, pretty baby, I'm like a black crow flying, dark and ragged and no regrets. Until love sucks me back that way, dreams and false alarms. But Blue, I've got a shell for you. What point regrets, Coyote? So there's a lot of blues and blue in this book, and this is one of the poems that, by its title, calls on that. Magdalene Blues. Whenever anyone says, I've found Jesus, I always wonder, where has Jesus been all this time? By which I mean to ask, has Jesus been on holiday in Machu Picchu or in Russia's Black Dolphin prison trying to convert the unconvertible? And I also mean to ask, why is the someone who said it saying it? Is she a full-time trollop or a woman tired of living as a legend? This need for finding is the most curious of things. Maybe what's been lost is something someone knew about all along but failed to report to CNN. Or is it something that never existed, though someone always insists it did? Like love. Always an excellent bet that's gone lost or is only observable in the rearview mirror of some previously owned infinity. And once found, what's to be done with either love or Jesus? Both have been proven to be Big Mama Thornton blue, yet they snag the mind like a fear you'll burn in someone else's hell. A worry that beloveds appear closer than they truly are. Two more. Canticle at Twilight. Floating like a feather, like a single grain in the sea, grateful despite being alive. Craving grace as I crave evening, cradling rage as I cradle no vicar. I think I might just be a clock and juju power in a terrible century, a needle and the way to plunge it in, dancing through a meadow anyway. Floating like singular rage, unlike 20 sheaves of feathers, like a vicar alive and dancing anyway. Craving this terrible century and every clock cradled in the sea. I think I'll always be the needle, grateful for my grain and juju power and all the ways to plunge into it in this meadow, just for an evening. And I'll close with this and just say thank you to the audience. Thank you again so much, Joyce, from the bottom of all of our hearts. You're our treasure, and we're just so happy to have you here in the Southern Realm. I didn't know we were doing the realm thing, but apparently we're doing the realm. Southern Realm, queen of the Southern, yeah, okay. All right. When nothing else will do. That's what you said, Lee, right? When nothing else will do. I don't want to pluck my burr from his flesh, nor do I want to be kind. Or if I am to be kind, I want to be a kind of chameleon, night blue fluorescent. I want to kill that gnat on the wall, but I don't want to hoover under our once bed, sight of our rub-a-dub. I don't want to be a full set of some starlet's perfect teeth, and despite having nothing to boost, I want to walk around wearing only my bustier. I don't want a flower unless I Narcissus, and yes, I will honor and always my fey black body, our first delights and our mornings. I want to tell his best mother everything, that I don't want him to ever forget my length of legs, both of my hands just there. I think I want to know what he wants, but perhaps I shouldn't look in that mirror, because, and even because, is a kind of want. So just tell me, who has he been reading? Kafka? Poetry Flash? Manga for anime? I added that at the end. All I want is for my hair to anemone and the not wanting to go for broke, while I drink honey bourbon and listen again, then over again. Not a day goes by. Thank you.
What do the kids say? Oh my God? Something like that? Oh, that was so good. It's like, I didn't hear one bad poem. Not even a bad line. When does that happen? That never happens. Only in California does that happen, where you can hear one poet after the other, and not even a bad poem in the mix, and not even a bad line in the mix. I was listening, and for me, it's interesting because these poets, and most of the people who read, a couple of people I got to know more of their, like Ramón and Steven Rood. I got to hear more of your poetry than I'd heard before, which and I loved it. And many of the other poets, I know you from way back, and you were good before, you know. But I was sitting there going, damn, I've gotten really good. Joyce, do you want to come up here for a minute to say goodbye to everybody? Not that, you know, you're not going to see everybody again, but shoot, you're going back up to San Francisco. Can you come up here? And we got a big cake out there. I brought a big, fat bakery cake, and with strawberries, and not only strawberries on top, there are brownies. I got a cake with brownies on top of it. And yeah, come on, if you can, Joyce, take your time, because I think everybody wants to say goodbye to you for now. And here is the goddess of the, and by the way, I also wanted to say, when I say good, remember I said the poems were all good and everything? I mean something specific by that. I mean quality of intelligence, richness of imagination, the liveliness of the language, plus craft, just in case anybody didn't know what I meant by good. Joyce, can I give you a hug again? Oh, look, we both have you have your jewels. Mm-hmm. I have my Bakelite. Mm-hmm. That's good. Got my earrings going on. Look, you got your nails. You've got beautiful nails. Well, I got nails.
You
What
do too?
else do we have so much in common? Okay. Whatever you want to say to people, this is the time to say it.
Well, I was thinking originally of saying a little bit of giving a kind of a capsule history of Poetry Flash, and I think that it doesn't feel right to do that now. I think that we've sort of expressed it in a whole different way, and I don't think that would be a good thing to do. But I would like to read one poem, just to just a little if I can. Maybe a poem that's sort of this poem's been around for a while, but it reminds me very much of working on Poetry Flash in the off-site kitchen that basically has kept us alive around the corner Mexican restaurant. But it's called Piano Man. Friday night. Beautiful jazz piano at Picante's. 2 people in the room. 3 grubby skateboarders and several ticket holders waiting for their food in the next. The music, simple yet impossibly lovely, impossibly complicated, pours out of the shiny black spinet. The piano player notices me listening. He can hear me listening. He turns his head slightly to look. I look away to avoid eye contact because the music is impossibly intimate. How can I tell him that it's okay, that no one but me hears? That I will walk out and down 6th Street and he will be alone, but that he must not stop playing. That he is not alone as long as he sounds, that he means as long as he sounds, that he cannot stop playing. He must not. And I just want to thank you all so much. Just thank you. You know, I've spent I've been working on Poetry Flash, and I did festivals before that, and I've been working on Poetry Flash since 1978, it's been my life's work, and you've all been part of that. Whether I know you or not, you've all been part of it, and a big part of it, and I just can't thank you enough for recognizing, for seeing what the bridge that we're building between poetry and, the world, and also from Northern California to Southern California, because we're all in this together. And thank you. Thank you so much.